Today, Seth has selected for us the Dunwich Horror, 1970. Take it away, Seth.
So the Dunwich Horror is an adaptation of a H.P. Lovecraft short story called the Dunwich Horror. And H.P. Lovecraft would have pronounced it Dunwich, but everyone in the movie says Dunwich, like Greenwich Village in New York City. If everyone was visiting, so everyone in the town consistently, though, there are some movies I've watched where people are not consistent with pronunciations. At least they are consistent with the pronunciation Dunwich Horror, even though it's supposed to be Dunwich Horror. Now, this movie was optioned by none other than Schlockmeister Roger Corman in 1963, and it could have been made with Italian horror maestro Mario Bava, who is a big influence on Coppola, Scorsese, and Tarantino, but it ended up getting bounced around until it was released in 1970, so that means it got made in 1969, post Rosemary's Baby, post Manson family murders, and it was made by Daniel Heller, right?
Yeah, and you can see Rosemary's Baby all over this.
All over this.
Well, we'll get to that.
Yeah. Now Heller is interesting because if you look him up, he was the art director for Roger Corman for years, and he went on to TV, and some of his TV stuff is Battlestar Galactica, BJ and the Bears, Charlie's Angels. BJ and the Bear was great because it had a chimpanzee and a character named BJ in it. I think that's awesome. What else did he do? He did Knight Rider. So he launched Hasselhoff's career, he's 95, I think now, and he's still alive in Beverly Hills. But he was one of those guys who made the transition into TV and consistently did that. Also, there was a Incredible Hulk ripoff called Manimal, which I loved as a kid, and he was responsible for that. And only last 4 episodes. So anyway, so we start off with this thing, and because Hiller's an art director, it starts off with the greatest opening title ever because it's all animated in that very specific 1960s silhouette of and it's almost funny, like like it's them wandering through the forest and the mountains which are the titles, and then coming up to the top of a mountain, and then the person who was led up there is thrown into the mouth of Satan, and that's the last bit of the black and blue, as I remember it. Was it black and blue?
Yes, I think it was red in
Red.
there. They were climbing up Satan because then you kind of saw like a little nose in there, and then
you saw that little nose and a mouth, but then it obviously becomes a living Satan, giant Satan, and throws the sacrifice down its throat. And then we start, and we're right in at Miskatonic University, and we have
which is a fictional university.
Which is a fictional university, which I claimed I went to on my Facebook page for grad school in drama and the occult. But it was a made-up university where there's a copy of the Necronomicon. Both were made up by H.P. Lovecraft. And Dr. Armitage, who's played by Ed Begley Sr., Academy Award winner. This is his last role before he dropped and went into the nether realm. And he's being spied upon as he walks with his, young following of, I think, all girl students, right? Like they're just following this old man around after his occult lecture on the Necronomicon. And he's like, hey, put this book away. And the book is the Necronomicon, which also appears at the beginning of Evil Dead. And then we see Dean Stockwell with an afro, sideburns, and a 70s mustache, who just passed away recently. That's why I decided we were going to do this. And Dean Stockwell's like wants to see the book. And Dean Stockwell is Wilbur Whatley of the Whatley family, which is sort of an inbred upper crust
They pronounce it
family.
Waitley, I think.
Whatley. Wilbur Whatley. And he wants to see the book. And he also is very interested in Sandra Dee for whatever reason. And eventually
there's something in the book that Dean Stockwell wants.
Yeah, there's something in the book that Dean Stockwell wants. And he gets Sandra Dee to let him look at the book. And then he goes out with her, misses his train home, and she drives him home, and she's too tired to go back home herself, so she's going to spend the night.
Let me interrupt you there too, because
Okay.
in the movie, I was watching this. I'm like, wait a second, this is a pretty cute chick, and then she's just going with this weirdo. She met him 2 minutes ago, but in the movie, they did some directing where they made Dean Stockwell's eyes a little loopy. Like they focused in on his eyes. They played some weird music. And
Yeah, he's doing like full on like
were,
psycho acting.
but it really,
like, look at me, I'm weird.
Like he was hypnotizing Sandra Dee with some dark magic. That's what it seemed like, because after that, this chick is all about Dean Stockwell, and nobody else likes him.
And Sandra Dee is a 30-year-old college freshman. By the way.
Anyway, Seth, you were saying.
Okay, so by the way, the part that Dean Stockwell played, had it been made in 1963, would have been Peter Fonda, who was a big Corman player. But by the end of this whole deal, Corman is only executive producer on this film. So anyway, you can imagine if it was Mario Bava and it was Fonda and Corman had more of a hand in it. Anyway, that being said, they go, and then they go back to the house. She's too tired, and we meet the nutty grandfather of the clan, who is played by I'm blanking on his name. He's a really great actor who was blacklisted.
Keep on talking. I'll look it up.
Okay, he was blacklisted, and he was a friend of Zero Mostel and Jack Gilford, and he was on Dr. Kildare. But anyway, he's playing the classic, like, paranoid grandfather, like, we don't let people in here kind of things. And he says, what if she goes to this room?
Jaffe.
What? Jaffe.
Sam Jaffe.
Sam Jaffe. So Sam Jaffe is also kind of chewing the walls in his acting in this, but and he also has a staff which for some reason has an American Indian Thunderbird symbol on the end of it.
Yeah,
I don't know.
He carries that around with him everywhere.
And he carries it around with him everywhere. Yeah,
everywhere. Mm-hmm. Go ahead. All right. I thought that was weird.
So, yeah, it is weird, but I mean, he's a wizard. What do you?
I told you to take the wizard's staff from the 2 towers. Yeah.
Yeah. So then, basically, we start to find out more and more weird stuff about the Whatley family and Whatley family.
Who has a deep history in the area, and the grandfather that they called Wizard Whatley was a real weirdo and was known about town.
Yeah, and he was hung. He gives her the tour. He gives Sandra Dee the tour of the town, and he says, that used to be the old town square. There used to be an oak tree here. They hung my grandfather from it, my great-grandfather from it. And
this was within 5 minutes of meeting Sandra Dee, by the way. Go right ahead.
Yeah. And then they let him hang there for days, and after they lynched him, and then they burned him and burned the whole tree down. And she's like, oh, I mean, that's terrible. And he goes, it's just history. with his weird, far off sort of I've seen things you can't believe stare. And yeah, so this goes on with the weirdness, and then there's some investigation, because as we've established in earlier episodes, there has to be an investigation in every movie like this by Armitage about who these people are. And we find out that everybody in this town has been delivered by the same doctor. The same doctor has delivered everybody, and
Dr. Corey.
Dr. Corey. And Dr. Corey tells them that he delivered them under strange circumstances. There were these albino women, and the mother had her insides all torn out, and one of the babies he never saw was born stillborn.
A twin.
And now all of this, yeah,
And
go on.
Dr. Corey's nurse is played by Talia Shire.
Who's Talia Coppola at this point in her career, but
In the
yeah,
movie.
yeah, because she was working for Corman Productions too at this, and so was her. So was Francis Ford Coppola at one point in his career. So this is a sort of connect the dots movie. And
Do you mean plot wise or from an industry standpoint?
from an industry standpoint, I don't think it's a connect the dots from a plot point standpoint. Unless
No,
you're going to go.
I mean, this does have a pretty impressive cast based on the quality of the movie. Because I saw it, I liked it, I guess. But this is your basic $1 DVD movie bin in a supermarket in the aughts. Because I would watch this stuff. I didn't have cable for years, didn't have an antenna for years, so I would buy the 50-cent DVDs. They would have it in double packs, like 30 monster movies from the whenever, like movies that don't have any licensing agreements, and this was one of those films. It's probably in a bin for $2.99 somewhere, and it's worth the $3 to watch it. I'll tell you that, because it is trippy. And also,
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, Sean. I think this may be the best the best bad movie
because it is kind of cool.
that we've done. It's a bad movie, but it's really good.
Also, I know you guys saw Rosemary's Baby. I saw Easy Rider.
There's a lot of Easy Rider, and there's a lot of Psych Out and the other LSD movie, because those are all Corman movies.
These are one of those movies that I would actually torrent instead of spending the money to watch, but I would torrent, and then I would realize, you know what? This is not bad at all. This is like a very decent movie to watch.
Like, it's worth your time, and it's
yeah. That's how I felt. That's how I felt about one of those other movies. And then there was None, and that's how I fell in love with. Well, I've been watching, and then there was None since I was a kid, along with Universal's version of Sherlock with Sherlock Holmes with Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce, and Fox's Mr. Moto, and all of those detective serials that I just freaking love. And not to move away from the topic at hand, but it's under the same realm of things that I would actually watch, and I would torrent it, because you they're not doing those bins anymore. You have to go to like real like 99-cent stores that do have them, and they're like becoming more.
They are. They stopped selling DVDs at CVS and Walgreens. Like, I remember last year they had DVDs. I bought some. I bought like a Will Ferrell triple pack, but now they don't have them anymore. Because some of that, like, I just dig like lost media. That's what this movie is to me. It's like a gem in the rough, and they really used color well. And I'll tell you this: Dean Stockwell was hypnotizing. He really knew what he was doing.
He was doing some shit I've never seen actors do before.
Like when you watch a movie
mesmerizing.
and you're like, wow, this guy has the guts to do like really risky acting because it could come off bad, but he's doing it. Like, he's doing stuff like that.
It was.
He
It was.
never
It
Yeah.
really
he
was
never raises
fascinating.
his voice.
I've never seen, and I can't think of a role where I've seen somebody take as many risks as he took as in that one. I found like that was the number one. There's the single biggest thing that stood out to me about this film was Dean Stockwell's performance, and you know, I find it like nothing short of breathtaking, just because
Honestly,
the
yeah.
role is the character is so weird, and so much about the actual family history and whatever doesn't really make sense. I mean, it just seems it's so fanciful and fantastical, and he doesn't, somehow he's not corny. Like
Yeah.
he almost steps over the line and becomes corny, but he never happens. It never becomes corny. He turns into this weird, like, kind of psycho seductive. Like, he becomes like, I mean, he's kind of like a sexy, like, character.
It's like a
Let
sexy
me tell you why
hippie.
he's sexy.
Yeah,
Let me
it's
tell you why
weird.
he's
It's like
sexy.
he's like a hipster. Like, if some like really good looking hipster from Williamsburg circa 2005, like the most popular hipster on Bedford Avenue from 2005, teleported back to 1970 and was like cast in this role, that would be the character he's playing.
Yeah. He has this deep desire that's very alluring.
Have any of you seen the show You on Netflix?
Oh my
Yeah,
god, I love that
it bothers me, but it's
It's
good.
it is. But I was like, oh, if this was cast today, this would be Penn Badgley playing this role. Because
That's
it's
a
the
good
same
100%.
type of quiet, intelligent intensity that is both frightening, but yet, I don't want to use the word seductive, but very likable.
And it's like it's like
Charming.
Yeah.
they have this deep desire.
Yes. And you know that it's wrong, but yet you're like, but they're so dedicated and like not malicious about it that I sort of am rooting for them in a
Yeah, there's
weird
a
way.
massive undercurrent in those characters, and I just really like, including his outfit. Did you see his outfit? Dean Stock. He had like a lace purple scarf tied in a knot around his neck, like it's some weirdo tie, and
I
like
remember.
in a corduroy blazer.
Yeah, I
Hey,
remember the
you know what he
corduroy
was doing?
blazer.
You know what he did? Speaking of, like, going back to what we were talking about last week with Peter Bogdanovich, he actually pulled that shit off. He pulled off that
He
sort of
did.
like weirdo, artsy thing and made it actually believable.
Yeah, I dug it. I want that outfit to be. I don't know if I can pull it off. And
We
he
should
did have
all
a really
go. We should all go out for Halloween as Dean Stockwell in in this movie.
Are we taking it back to that point where we were talking about how Peter Bogdanovich was not trendy, but he tried to force it? Now we're saying that he.
No, I was just pointing out that I think I think people were genuinely convinced by Peter Bogdanovich's shtick back in the day, that sort of effeminate, kind of like masculine but effeminate, I'm a director type of shit. I think that whether it convinced people or not, I'm not convinced by it. I don't think he pulled it off. I'm saying that this guy pulled off the look better than
Agreed.
Peter Bogdanovich. That's
Agreed. I
You
couldn't
have to
have
remember
agreed
also
any.
that this movie was shot in England, and the swinging '60s were much more
Was it at Pinewood?
fashion conscious.
Was it
I
at?
don't think it was at Pinewood,
Mm.
but I'm
No,
just
it
saying
wasn't
that
that
the
funny.
swinging '60s were much more fashionista there than here.
agree.
Uh,
Yeah.
they had better gangsters and stuff like that, better cars. Oh, the car is awesome too. The Alpine that they drive around in, the red
Oh
Alpine,
yeah.
Wait, where's the
is
director of this film from?
he's from America.
Oh, so he wasn't
He's
English. But no,
no,
now
but
that
he's
you mentioned that it was shot in England, and like I'm thinking back to like some of the scenes and the feel and the pace of it, I'm like, that movie's the Dunwich Horror is like kind of reminding me of like James Bond. And
Oh yeah.
well, I mean,
what
I don't know. One of the things that
He's
stood out to me in the
missing.
film is
He's doing something on a mission.
the way that he goes about making her stay with him. Like the first thing he does, right, is he goes to her car and removes, I forget what part it was, but it basically made it impossible for her to start the ignition.
Yeah.
But like all these little, I don't know, objects in this film, like inanimate objects that are shot a certain way. There seems to be like a lot of, it's like very stylized.
Everything
It
is
is.
influenced by James Bond at this point, though,
It
like
is.
in film.
Yeah,
No,
that
but
makes sense.
Abrams.
I mean, obviously, the biggest standout, the thing that was just like the most glaring thing, besides Dean Stockwell's intense performance, is just how much this movie reminded me of like Rosemary's Baby as well. Like those scenes where where all this ritual shit is happening with these different kind of filters on the camera, and it's like dreamlike. There's so many moments that just recalled the scenes in Rosemary's Baby where she's being impregnated by the devil and they're doing those weird rituals and she has to,
Yeah, well, that movie was a huge influence on all films, and if you could make a cheap
especially
version,
horror, right?
especially horror, like there's even a movie called, I think it's called the Devil Dog Hound of Hell, which is Rosemary's Baby, but it's a dog. They steal somebody's dog and they impregnate it with the devil, and then they sell the puppies to innocent people. So like everybody had to make a version of it if because this is one of those movies. It's like it was floating around since 1963, the rights, and the time was there, and I think everyone was getting really scared of flower children too after the Manson thing, and there's elements of that in
But I
it.
think also you have this theme of this sort of like this almost this despising of children, right? Like Rosemary's Baby is a movie that depicts a pregnancy as like an infection, like a demon infecting your body. I mean, most people don't think about it like that. And then in this movie, just like so many other things, there's a plot. There's this like jarring plot twist at the very, very end of the movie that doesn't exist at all on any level in the short story that it's based on, where they show that even though they succeeded in neutralizing this Wilbur Whately, the Dean Stockwell character, and I guess like the professor is able to do the right kind of chanting to get him to the fire to rain down on him, and then he falls into the pit. He succeeded.
You guys are gonna hate me.
What? What's up? Wait, let me finish my point. He succeeded in the end in impregnating this girl with his demon seed, and they show that. And I mean,
Kind of like in The Void, 2016.
yeah, but there seems to be this whole like sort of theme that starts to pop up in this time in American history of like viewing children as this like parasite, as this like evil demon parasite. And that's something that it's like they threw that in at the end of this film randomly, and clearly that has to be a nod to. I mean, that to me is the biggest. The second the movie started, and you started seeing these weird scenes with like stuff happening to the woman in the early part of the movie, you're like, this is a Rosemary's Baby bite. I mean, it makes perfect sense. That was a hugely popular film. But the very ending, they just throw that in there. Oh, guess what? She's been impregnated with the demon. That didn't exist at all in the H.P. Lovecraft story. And it's clearly like, it's almost more of a 1970 horror movie than it is, an H.P. Lovecraft.
It is for these horror. I think it's within the type of the style of horror it is, where it can never have a happy ending. And I do know what you mean by the style of it, because when Dr. Armitage and all the other old white men were getting a posse together, which was kind of cool, to stop Dean Stockwell's incantation. All those scenes I
Or
really liked, because it's like
a
those
Frankenstein
acting.
movie.
For those
I
those
was
actors, it was like bad acting, but it was such in the style of the movie that it really worked. And it was all in
I
one
was
take too. They would do those in one take.
I was never like I was never a fan of Rosemary's Baby. I never saw the appeal of it. I never got it, never understood the appeal of it. To this day, I if I were to watch it, I would still feel the exact same way I did when I was a kid. It never felt like true horror to me. I know it was, but it never felt like it was true horror. It didn't scare me. You try to hold a match to it compared to The Exorcist, and it just doesn't compare.
I
Now,
see your
I will
I
point.
think
say,
what I think.
but
Listen,
wait,
I
wait,
agree.
wait,
I
hold,
understand.
hold,
Sorry, go ahead. Go
hold
ahead.
on, hold on. But I will say this though, there is a movie that reminds me of it without, or I should say, with the exception of the baby part, the demon and whatnot, and that's the 1980s movie, the Entity. Do you guys remember that? Where the female was being sexually molested and raped by this netherworldly being, ghost, phantasm, whatever you want to call it. And it was literally not just raping her, but physically abusing her at the same time as it was raping her. And that kind of reminds me of that without the baby portion of it.
I see your point.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
could see that. I don't know. I understand how anybody could say that, like, especially horror fans could say they watched Rosemary's Baby and, well, weren't really that impressed. I don't find that, you know, I don't think it's a terrifying movie. I think it was terrifying to the audience of 1969 or whatever. Well, Seth, was it 1969? Or are we wrong?
1968 or 69. It's
Okay, so
before.
I know that, like, when I talk to my parents about it, they tell me, like, yeah, when we saw that movie in the theaters, we were terrified, and then when we saw it like 30 years later on a VHS, we were like, what was so scary about that movie? I think what people fail to realize is, like, about that film in particular, is that it's not really a movie about a woman getting impregnated with the devil. It's a movie about how, like, gradually you can end up in a situation where everybody in your life that you're close to is secretly conspiring against you. That's what makes that such a compelling, creepy movie. This idea that, like, even your husband, he's working with these evil forces to, like, impregnate you with the devil and he's getting something in return for it. And
So he
everybody's
could be
out
a
to get you.
famous actor. Yes, he did it so he could be a famous actor.
Exactly, and everybody's so much more basic than you think. They're willing to sell you out for anything, and the idea that somebody could be utterly manipulated in that way. I think that's what makes the film endure.
But it is true because Rosemary's Baby was 68 and the modern horror movie was created in 73 with The Exorcist. So I could see
I
Danicus's
get it
point
too,
where
100%.
right with like yeah where it's not really
It's
like
not a
yeah
horror
Rosemary's
movie.
Baby is not
Rosemary's
really
Baby
a
is not a
horror movie.
horror
It's not
movie.
really a horror movie. But also one last that I noticed on my list here. If we have any George Lucas fans, I am not one, but I did notice he has the same type of close up that he does, and it's a waist high, cross the body close up, and he uses it in all of his films, and it was used here very predominantly. I messed up that last word, but predominantly, I noticed that.
I didn't catch.
Anybody else notice
I
that?
didn't catch it.
No, all right.
No, it's good of you though. I
And
mean,
I also read so little for our listeners. H.P. Lovecraft was an author in the early 20th century. He was a very strange man. I dare you to look into his history, but he is one of the most major influences in modern horror today. A hundred years later, one of the narrative devices H.P. Lovecraft created was the Necronomicon, or Book of the Dead, which is predominantly used, like in Evil Dead and a lot of other Army of Darkness and everything else. Before H.P. Lovecraft, there was nothing in literature of the Book of the Dead, so he created that. He also created the idea that we're just a rock in space hurtling in nothing, meaning nothing. Also, he created these monsters. One of the most famous one is called Cthulhu, and these references get used a lot in modern cinema and literature because H.P. Lovecraft, when he died penniless, but one of his friends got all his writings together and put them out piece by piece in those sci-fi magazines. And that's how H.P. Lovecraft inspired Stephen King and John Carpenter and others, Dan O'Bannon from Alien, and then those guys are inspiring other filmmakers like today. And I always find that little streamlined vein of creativity very inspiring. But the original Necronomicon is actually Islamic, and it was written by a man named Al Azif
No, he
around
made that up
700.
though. He made that
It's
up.
it's
Clear this
is
up
that where
in,
he got the
but it's
idea for the
Islamic.
Mad Arab? Is that where he got the idea for
No,
the Mad
he
Arab?
made that up. He made up the Mad Arab. There is no Necronomicon.
No, that's
But those
true.
are
Yeah,
two
it's a
That's
different.
how good he. That's how good he
But
is.
those are two different
but,
ideas. Those are
but
two
it's
different
Islamic.
ideas, though. But those are two different ideas, though. The Necronomicon and the Mad Arab. Those are not the same thing. Those are
The Mad
different
Arab
periods.
supposedly wrote the Necronomicon, according to
Okay.
H.P. Lovecraft.
His name
He
is
created
You
all of
Al.
that, but you'll run
you
into
know
people who believe that they're real.
you do know that that's where Batman got Arkham Asylum from, right? From
Yes,
From
H.P.
Arkham,
Lovecraft.
yeah,
that's
yeah.
true. That's one of the influences.
Yeah,
It's
everything takes place
everywhere.
in the town of Arkham on the Miskatonic River in Massachusetts, just like most of the stuff in Stephen King takes place in Castle Rock near Salem's Lot, Jerusalem's Lot, which becomes Salem's Lot. Like Stephen King was deeply influenced by reading Dunwich Horror, specifically Dunwich Horror, and getting
Because
into it.
a majority of Stephen King's stories take place in Castle Rock, Maine, and a majority of H.P. Lovecraft's stories take place in Arkham, Massachusetts. Meaning each author, like Stephen King, chose one town for all this stuff to happen because of H.P. Lovecraft. Is why.
Yep.
That makes me think of a question for all of you. How much do you think the calculations of you know, telling these kinds of stories, or at least the inspiration, comes from the fact that, colonial New England had some very interesting witchcraft scenarios for real in the 17th century, like with the Salem witch hunt, and that's in Massachusetts. And then I don't know about Maine, but I'm just saying, like the Northeast, colonial New England, like it seems like whenever I start to hear H.P. Lovecraft narrate these stories, I feel like I'm getting thrown back like 300 years ago, 400 years ago, into like this world that's a sort of, it's
That's
almost
a
like
good point.
a mirror of colonial New England.
Because he's very. If you read the stories, it's relies heavily on atmosphere, which is why I think the movie from
100%.
1970 did a lot of atmospheric things. It's a different atmosphere. I mean, burgundy and pink and purple could be just as scary as red and black and gray, But actually, I have a portion in this story here of the description of the monster. Let me just read it really quick.
And
Because in
guys,
the
this is from the short story or the novella that this film is based.
yes, it's not that long. It was bigger than a barn, all made of squirming ropes. Whole thing sort of shaped like a hen's egg, bigger than anything, with dozens of legs like hogsheads that half shut up when they step. Nothing solid about it, all like jelly, and made up separate wriggling ropes pushed close together, great bulging eyes all over it, 10 or 20 mouths or trunks sticking out all along the sides as big as stovepipes, and all a tossing and opening and shutting, all gray with kinder blue or purple rings. Oh God in heaven, that half face on top. That was what the monster was in the
in the barn,
yeah, which is
which
kind
only
of cool.
which only becomes visible when Arkham throws dust on it, right? Or he says
Yeah,
some
see, that was the thing.
incantations.
In the story, it was invisible, which is like, why?
In
You're
the
not
film,
making
it's never made visible.
that. I know, but to me, it's like even when he was writing the short story, he was writing it for a cheap horror movie to be made in 1970. He made the thing invisible. You're writing it down. You're not. It's not production cost to make a monster writing it down. But he did. He didn't. It's invisible, except for that one portion where that's somebody through a telescope looking out, seeing the thing. In the story, it's a group of people looking through a telescope. I just think that was like nuts. Just because, and also Will in the story, Dean Stockwell dies halfway through the story, and it's
And
all like,
he's also 7 feet tall in the story. He's ripped
And
apart
he
by
and he and he
dogs.
reached and he reached sexual maturity as a man after a decade.
yeah,
Yeah,
after
That's just
oh my
all
god,
backstory for the Dean Stockwell character to create that persona.
I
yeah.
just
Like
thought
he's like. Can you imagine like if they had to do this like real like according to the story, and you have to justify a 7 foot tall man walking into your college looking for a book? It's just not.
It would just be too
Well,
distracting.
and that's how you have Slenderman.
And then he's torn apart by dogs, and like his whole abdomen is covered with like
Yeah,
tendrils,
but I
right?
suspect that H.P. Lovecraft is too like fanciful and crazy to really do a faithful rendition in film. Like I haven't read his not I haven't read anything of his except this, and just from his style alone, I just get the sense that this type of writing doesn't translate scene for scene to a film, the way that
This is
something
the
like
best of it.
Tolkien or some other kind of like sci-fi writer might work better. I mean, it just seems a little just too difficult to do. I don't know. What do you guys'
well,
Well,
thoughts
let
on
me
that?
just name a few of the other movies that have been made out of H.P. Lovecraft. There's a movie called Dagon, which isn't that great. There's From Beyond. There's Reanimator.
Wait,
We're talking.
Reanimator, which is what's his name? Cronenberg? No.
No. Reanimator is not
Stuart
Cronenberg.
Gordon.
Reanimator is who?
Stuart Gordon.
What was that?
Reanimator was Stuart Gordon, 1985.
Yeah, Stuart Gordon, the
Oh,
guy
okay.
you like, who did the Mammoth,
Oh, that guy, the guy who did Edmund.
the guy who did Edmund.
Oh
Yeah,
God.
he did Reanimator.
There's another one for this show.
That's a H.P. Lovecraft
Yeah, I
adaptation,
can see
and right
that.
now Guillermo del Toro has announced, as of today, that he's not going down without a fight to make Mountains of Madness.
Okay, so who? Okay, then my question is to any of you: has anyone done a really good rendition, a really
Oh,
good
and
film
Color Out of
of
Space.
H.P. Lovecraft? Which one is it? Huh?
I don't think there is one.
That's
I
what I'm
mean,
asking. Yeah.
I haven't seen Color Out of Space, the Nick Cage one, but I hear, it's a later Nick Cage, and those are always going to be interesting.
No, there's another one from the early 90s that was decent. I want to ask Judy, as our horror expert, how do you think this,
I would say that very loosely.
of
No,
course,
come on.
but
You're the only one who's been paid by the Horror Channel.
how do you think this movie holds up? In like the horror spectrum.
Well, I think it's horror, and I still will say that I think Rosemary's Baby is horror, especially if you put it in the context of the time period, because it's merely any movie that horrifies people. And I think anything that when you're summoning a demon baby, I thought it had a lot of elements of other movies, even going into you guys are gonna kill me. The very first zombie movie,
Night of the Living Dead.
Night of the Living Dead. I don't know why. I feel like in this movie, there's a lot of elements of other movies. There was elements that reminded me of Psycho, of Rosemary's Baby, Night of the Living Dead.
Which was, Night of the Living Dead was also 1968. So if this was this director's first movie, I'm sure he was pulling from other films at that same time that were
Yeah.
really popular and like using those things. You were
Yeah,
saying?
there was just certain ways that it was shot and the people out and the use of the camera kind of as the perspective of like the monster. They also
Yeah,
use that in The Evil Dead.
and Jaws.
There's just certain I don't know if I don't think they're tropes, but just certain style choices that they've made in horror. They don't really use that anymore. And there was something too about this house, because whenever they would go on like the front steps, it looked like some like rickety shanty house. But then when you go inside, it's like this elaborate setup.
Yeah.
And I don't know, did they ever show the actual house that he lived in? Like, is it? I feel like they did, but then whenever they were on the porch, I was like, are we at the same location? That was the only part I was really confused about. Is like, I couldn't quite get a grasp on where they shot it.
They never make those scenes in any of the scenes that take place on the property like contiguous, like where they walk from one space
Yeah.
to another space, and from the external shots of the property. There's like a couple of external shots that they look like they can't be the same property.
Yeah, so
Is
I was
that what you're
confused by
talking
that.
about?
Yeah,
I don't. You don't get a sense of like where the beginning and end, or what the limits of their property is. There's
Yeah.
all these multiple structures, and there's multiple facades that don't look like they'd even be in the same place. And the day shots and the night shots look totally different. So
yeah,
yeah,
and also there's the use of the room upstairs. In a lot of films, there's like, oh, that's the room you don't go in. I feel like there's a whole list of rooms. The one at
Oh, like the one that Burnt Offerings had the room you don't go in.
it had the room you don't go in, right? And even this is a TV show recently. It's kind of like the House on Haunted Hill, the recent one. I
Was
can't
it
remember
Hell
the name.
House? Was it Hell House?
I don't know if it was Hell House. It was the TV show
The Haunting
with
of
the
Hill
fan.
House.
Yes, The Haunting of Hill House, where they had it's the same thing. It was like that room upstairs.
Yeah, that's the Frishkiati director, the guy who
Yeah.
did Doctor Sleep. I like him. I like Doctor Sleep.
Yes. So, and just there's a lot of films that, like The Skeleton Key, even, there's always like this room. You don't go in the
Skeleton Key.
room.
I remember the Skeleton Key. I
Like an
like the voodoo.
obscure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But so
that's an
there's
obscure one.
there's usually like the room where they keep the book. Just so many, there's so many of those. So I just thought that there was a lot of things. And then I just kept seeing, now Seth would know this, Aleister Crowley,
Yeah,
the hands on the side of the face.
Isn't it Alistair?
Aleister Crowley. Yeah,
Aleister Crowley. Okay. So what is the reference there? Because I didn't pick it
Aleister
up so
Crowley had
much
this
there.
famous picture of himself with his hands on his face and sort of like this position that made up a triangle, which is as above, so below kind of
Ooh,
shit.
I love
I
that
don't know. It's a
movie.
very famous picture of Aleister Crowley.
Yes, it's very.
As Above, So Below is a great movie. Oh god. Yeah. Oh, also, I got a quick question for Judy. Now, so do you remember in the movie when the grandfather falls down the stairs and Dean Stockwell and Sandra Dee are there? Why does Sandra Dee not care? Stare, stare
well,
at the
she's
old
fully
man,
hypnotized. She's like fully
and then they
hypnotized and
go.
under his spell.
I know, but then she goes and talks about the birds. I want to see what Judy thinks. So the grandfather falls down the stairs, and Sandra Dee does not care. Can you explain to me why?
I don't know, but what did he put in her tea? Because I feel like he's been giving it to her the whole time.
Yeah, he had a love potion. I
He
forgot about that.
or something. She made a comment when they're like looks like on the beach or on the cliffs or somewhere out like having a picnic in the middle of the day, and she talks about how she just feels so relaxed and like, oh, it's so relaxing
Yeah,
here. And I'm like thinking,
yeah.
you've never done drugs before, you know?
They had like two picnics. I remember that they were having picnics.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely like a 60s
He was
drug
vetting.
scene in the movie.
He was vetting her to become his, the mother of his demon. That's a big deal. You need to go on several, romantic dates in nature where you talk things out. You got to find out, is she really the one to give birth to this creature?
Yes, and is she really
It's
a
a lot of
virgin?
responsibility.
It also brings in the whole virgin thing. It's always a virgin.
Yeah.
Was she a virgin in
I
this?
don't
Wait, did
know.
I miss that?
She's a virgin.
Yeah.
Yeah, they make a
She's a
point of
vir-
it.
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
Completely admit that she's a virgin. Yeah.
Yeah, she makes a confession on the table, I think at the end. Or is it the table at the end? I forget which
Yes.
scene,
good.
but
Yeah.
she makes this confession.
She
And
says,
and
"Remember what
I'm
I said
not
about sex?"
I
Because
lied.
originally she says it's great. She
It's a
says, "I
lot of
lied."
fun. It's
Oh
fun.
yeah, that's right. Okay. I don't know how I forgot
And then
that.
she's like, I lied. And he's like, oh, I know.
and wait, how can you be a virgin? How can you be a virgin when you're driving around in like a red convertible sports car?
In
She must
Alpine.
be doing something wrong there.
Well, maybe
Because
Dad
it's,
got her that car. A lot of girls in Ridgewood, New Jersey, got sports cars for having
Okay,
good
so
grades for their Sweet
Yeah, but
16.
this, like you mentioned before, this chick is a 30-year-old college freshman.
Freshman.
Which doesn't exist.
What else was Sandra Dee in other than the lyric in
yeah,
Grease?
I don't know,
I'll
because
look
that's
it
all
up.
I was thinking of. I was like, look at me, I'm Sandra
Look
Dee.
at me, I'm
She was
Sandra
in
Dee. The whole
she was
movie.
in Frasier in '94. She was in Lost, a thing called Lost in 1983. She was in Gidget in 1959. And then after the Dunwich Horror, she did the Manhunter TV movie.
What did she do before Dunwich Horror so that she got to be a lyric in Grease? Like, I feel like I should know who Sandra Dee is.
Yeah, I
No,
agree.
none of
And I
these
don't.
things are known. None of them.
All
I'm
right, let me
looking
look
at
it up real quick.
Like,
documents.
I'm looking at her like, and I was like, this is like Doris Day, but it's not. It's Sandra Dee. So I was like,
She was in Fantasy Island
Her
as
real
a
name was
homeless.
Alexandra Zuck.
Hi,
okay,
everyone. Good night.
good
Just,
night.
just a quick question.
Yes.
I I was videoing outside around 3 p.m. in the evening, and there was this thing in my video. I have like three videos.
You should call
Uh,
the FBI, ma'am. It's not us.
Eh,
it
Was
was
it a
so crazy.
UFO or a demon?
No, it was a demon. Yes,
It
it
was
was
a
a demon.
demon. All right, all right. Well, you have it
Wait,
on
wait, wait, wait,
video.
wait. Hang
Call
on. You
Ripley's.
saw you saw a demon today in the afternoon when you were filming? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I was filming my podcast outside and I saw this thing in my video and I sent it to two family members. I don't know what to do with the
Well, you
video.
have film footage of it. You can, that's amazing. Most people don't even get the film footage of when they see crazy stuff like that. So you could get a bunch of experts to hop on, and take a look at that video footage. I mean, I'd like to see it now. Now I'm curious.
I'll give you $10,000 for that video right
I
now.
can just send it over to you or if you're on Facebook, I can just forward it from my Facebook Messenger and just send it to you.
Yeah, just
Because
back channel it to Abram.
Yeah, send it
I
on back channel. Can you send the link on back channel?
She
back,
can.
how do I do that now? Tell me.
So if you're looking at the screen, there's a little paper airplane icon in the lower right-hand corner.
It's on a tablet. I was videoing it on a tablet.
No, no,
So
I'm talking about right. Oh, you have to go onto the link on the
You
tablet.
gotta put it on
All right.
Vimeo or YouTube and then
Yeah,
back
well,
channel it.
upload it to YouTube and send us the link.
I don't want to do it like that. Oh my God, I didn't want nobody to really see it. I just wanted to send it to
Well, okay. How do I add you on Facebook?
Tamari Davis. Tamari
Okay,
Davis.
I will try to find you, and hey, we're this is a. I guess that this is an appropriate
This is an appropriate thing because
thing for this conversation
for
because we're
H.P.
talking
Lovecraft.
about we're talking about a demon movie.
You know what
I'm not
to
an
do?
expert in demons,
I
but
don't I don't know what to do. I was just videoing. It was 3 p.m. I shocked. I don't know what to do.
what do you think? What does it look like? What did you see?
it's like dark. It's like a dark thing just, it's like something was like playing around me at the back of me, and it's like I was like, whoa, what did I see? Then I tried to video again, and it show up again. 3 times it show up.
And
Well, we're
then
just movie critics, ma'am. I mean, we could try and help you. I think it's a Shedem or a Dybbuk. Judy, what do you think?
well, where does
I
Tamari?
don't
Where do you
know.
live? Where did this take place?
All the way in the island, Jamaica. I live in the island.
Oh well.
Wow.
Why why you
I
laugh?
don't know. I think there are probably paranormal teams that would know more than we would.
I was trying to Google stuff to see who, could find out what this thing is. I don't know. So,
Actually, when I was reading the Dunwich Horror, I underlined some words I didn't know the meanings of. So, Judy, I'm gonna speak to you, and you tell me if you know what I'm talking about. So, Judy,
Probably not.
I, I was hanging out with my fellow denizens, and then the air became very fotid. We looked around and saw saurians, which had a lot of ichor coming out of them, and they tarried, and then they went in an annular formation, and then suddenly they became very squamous, and so I was wondering if you could, and then after that, I felt very lugubrious, lugubrious, and
I
then
don't
and
know.
then
I feel like I'm on a bad date.
no, and then Seth acted like a psychopomp,
Uh,
and then he saw a whippoorwill flying around,
I
and
think
then
I can name 3 of those words. I know what 3 of those words mean.
you know what a psychopomp is? A god or person or shaman who guides spirits of the dead to the afterlife.
oh,
Well, that's what Tamari needs. Tamari, go to your Google and look up psychopomps in your area, and they could probably help you.
Saurian means various vertebrates like
Okay, Sean.
dinosaurs.
Sean, you're dragging us into the tedium of the obscure language of the novella upon which this movie was
Okay,
based.
I'll stop.
And I still haven't had an opportunity to give you the rundown on Sandra Dee. And you guys should hear this because it's kind of
yes, I would like
sad.
to hear about
And I think you
Okay.
guys would like to know, and I think it's relevant. So I'm going to read it off
Okay.
of Wikipedia. By the late 19th, well, okay, we'll start from the beginning. Sandra Dee was born Alexandra Zuck on April 23rd, 1942, was an American actress. Dee began her career as a child model, working first in commercials and then film in her teenage years. Best known for her portrayal of Ingenue, did I pronounce that? Ingenue?
Ingenue.
Yeah, ingenue. Dee earned a Golden Globe Award as one of the year's most promising newcomers for her performance in Robert Weiss's Until They Sail, 1958. So 1958, she's 16 years old at that point. She became a teenage star for her performances in Imitation of Life and Gidget, both 1959, which made her a household name. And I'm in the video as I'm recording right now, we're looking at this really lovely picture of her in 1959. She's got this dark, very dark look. All right, continuing on. By the late 1960s, her career had started to decline, and a highly publicized marriage to Bobby Darin.
Oh.
They married in 1960 and I guess ended their marriage and divorced in 1967. The year of her divorce, Dee's contract with Universal Pictures was dropped. This is the key part, she attempted a comeback with the 1970 independent horror film, The Dunwich Horror, but
Nice.
rarely acted after this time, appearing only occasionally in television productions throughout the 1970s and early 1980s. The rest of the decade was marred by alcoholism, mental illness, plus near total reclusiveness, particularly after her mother died in 1988. Afterwards, she sought medical and psychological help in the early 1990s and died in 2005 of complications from kidney disease brought on by a lifelong struggle with anorexia nervosa.
Oh man.
Let me just say one thing. She was married to Bobby Darin. Now, Bobby Darin had a breakdown and was inconsolable at the end of his life. So maybe her marriage, at least near the end of it, wasn't all that cool because he went real nuts.
Well, how much longer did he live after they divorced? Like, I don't know. Bobby
Not
Darin. Yeah, he died in 1973, so maybe, that's 6 years after they divorced.
Yeah, but it was a bad because his
He
mom.
died at age 37. He was a young man.
Yeah, because he found out that his sister was actually his mother.
Like
Oh
Jack.
God.
Like
Jack
Jack,
Nicholson.
Like Jack Nicholson.
and because Bobby Darin,
And
his real name was Darinelli. He was Italian,
I have a
and he changed his
connection to
name to
Jack
Dennis.
Nicholson in the Dunwich Horror. Do you know who directed the Dunwich Horror? What he also directed?
Little
No,
Shop of Horrors.
The original Little Shop of Horrors with Jack Nicholson.
I
He was
just
a
took a
corpsman.
shot in the dark on that
Yeah,
one.
he was a
yeah, no,
corpsman,
that was Jack's first movie, Little
and
Shop
it
of
was
Horrors.
this guy directed it.
Mm.
The guy who directed Dunwich.
I just think that's nuts. Sandra Dee, thank you for reading that. Because
Maybe there's a curse on the Dunwich Horror, but nobody knows the Dunwich Horror the way they know Rosemary's Baby.
and she's
So
from New Jersey. Nice.
where in New Jersey is she from?
She's from Bayonne. There's a
Oh.
saying in New Jersey: if it's from Bayonne, leave it alone. But I
That's
bet
only
you
funny to me
She
because,
strikes me as a chick from Nutley. You get it?
oh yeah,
no,
Nutley.
my aunt's from
Yeah, we
Nutley.
drove through Nutley yesterday.
Yeah, my
Oh
aunt
yeah.
is from Nutley. No shit. I just think
What's
that's
her name is from
Nutley is an
Martha's from
unfortunate
Nutley,
name.
right? Martha Stewart's from Nutley.
you
Well,
bet
there
she
you go.
is.
And you we say more.
I
And
think
she was
she
from
is.
England. When Martha
Or Meryl
Stewart went to
Streep, one of
jail,
them. I don't remember.
when Martha Stewart went to jail, I really think it upped her street credit, and then she got more famous as a convict. I just think that's
It's true.
I worked on her. I worked on her legal case. Actually, when I was 19 or 20 years old.
I
Indirectly, I worked at a law firm that was representing the gallery that sold her art that she didn't pay taxes on. That got sort of like got her on the radar. I don't know. Somehow it was related to the whole case with the insider trading and whatever. I don't think that
That's
she
funny.
deserved to. Looking at everything, what I saw, she did not deserve that. They were trying to make an example out
Wait,
of
wait,
her.
hold
Yeah.
on. So Martha
Guys, I
Stewart.
just think we should acknowledge the fact that we had a person on our show tell us that they have videotape of a demon from Jamaica, and it was on this show. So if
I want
nothing
to
ever
know.
comes,
Do any
Is
of
it
you?
okay?
Do you guys? What do you guys think that's all about? Hey, Sean. What do you?
Seth, may I chime in here just a little bit?
chime in, Sean.
First off, for those that don't know me, my name is Sean, and I'm an asshole.
No,
Amazing. That's
no,
exactly.
that's me.
Hi,
That's me.
Sean. We're assholes too.
Hmm.
It's a
Yes,
secret.
You're
so
both
apparently
This is this
assholes of
is
a feather.
That's the 13th step is when you admit you're an asshole.
Hmm.
no, this is just asshole anonymous.
Yeah, but
Excellent.
that's the 13th step of any 12-step program.
I don't know how many
Anyway,
chips I have today, but I've been an asshole for a while now.
okay.
So when it comes to demons, honestly, guys,
I think I was
give us a
born
break.
an asshole.
Give us a break when it comes to demons. I mean, we just want to be like everybody else. We get up in the morning, we pay our taxes and whatnot. Give us a little bit of a break. Stop taking pictures of us as if we were some sort of freak show. We contribute like everyone else. We just want our part of the pie.
Amen.
Listen, I agree. I agree 100%. If I want to dress up in a black demon costume and just sort of maraud, an innocent onlooker and just scare the shit out of her, just appear out of nowhere, like, come on, I'm creating entertainment for the masses. Let
Right.
me fucking do my job. Let me go and dress up as Bigfoot or this demon or that, and just play the part because I'm doing it for you. Because you guys keep putting these movies out and all this media. Like clearly that's what you want. Don't you want to experience it? And I'm here to bring that experience home to you. You should be
Can you
thanking
wear
me.
a
I don't charge money or.
No,
Can
seriously,
you
I
wear a
wear a
black
cape.
leotard? Can you wear a black leotard? Then we can call that. Then we can call it a deal.
Yeah, I could do a black leotard. I could dress up like Liberace. It doesn't matter as long as
I'll wear
it's
a cape.
weird.
I want the
Can I
cape. Cape's on the Cape.
Cape. So can I say when I
But
realized
I
that this
believe
movie
in
is
aliens
not...
and demons and all that shit anyway. I'm not trying to take a piss. This woman I believe what she said. I have no reason not to believe her. If I have evidence to the contrary, if she shows me the evidence and it's compelling, more power to her. If it
I
looks
just think that it's great that all the rooms in Facebook, she's like, oh, they're doing the Dunwich Horror 1970. That's where I'm going to tell
no,
that
not
I
not
saw a
not that she's
demon.
coming here even to tell us anything. She's coming here seeking advice because we're apparently experts in demons because
Because
us dumbasses watch
there
this
are rooms
fucking
about
movie.
UFOs and the
I
supernatural
am
she
an
could have gone
expert
to.
in demonology. I have a Tobin spirit guide. I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, she didn't give me time to
No,
pull my
but
monster
you can't
manual.
make this shit up. Like a
No,
woman just came into this room to get advice about a demon that she saw today and took a video of it at 3 p.m. And because we're talking about the Dunwich Horror, that like we might have some insight into it. That I mean, you really can't make that
this
shit
is
up.
but this is exactly what I've dealt with my whole life. It's like, oh, you play Dungeons and Dragons, you must worship Satan. Like people always put
Well,
two and two
it's
together.
it's
Like,
just more generically life
Well,
imitating art.
and
I
is
I, I
there
once
certain
read the
keywords too?
preface on the back of a book of Eckhart Tolle. Does that make me a Buddhist?
yes. What are you going to
Wait,
say, Judy?
I was
Judy?
gonna say it. I'm not that familiar with Clubhouse, but is there certain keywords that if someone were to type in something, they would get to this room?
Yes.
No, no,
Yes. Yes.
but not demonology. She
I,
would
I
get
think I
this.
think asshole is like the first.
No, you have interests. You could put in your interests.
Yeah, but
That I'm just
is our
curious.
room under
You just said,
demonology
yeah.
today?
How would she find us? That's what I'm
Unless she has an
asking.
interest in film, or I don't know. I don't.
We should ask her, I guess. We should ask her. If that
Yeah.
happens again. Sean, how did you find us?
Unless she wants you to send her money, and she was like, "I'm gonna go
That's
look for a bunch of
I want to
that's
nerds."
say
actually the
this about
first thing I
H.P.
thought of.
Lovecraft because it's on the subject. The moment that I realized this isn't really an H.P. Lovecraft film is the beginning when they suddenly have the big cartoon Satan eat the follower. Because if you read H.P. Lovecraft or like get into his work, nothing looks normal. Like he would never deign to have like a red guy with horns and a tail be the devil. Like it's
That's
always
true.
like jellyfish and like mutated snails crossed with
He,
like
he likes sea creatures.
aboriginal albino human
Well,
beings.
listen, because if you really want to delve deep into the psychedelic realm, you got to just spend time sleeping and dreaming. And this motherfucker, H.P. Lovecraft, this guy was heavily influenced by his dreams, from what I understand, and he had these crazy images. A lot of the things that you're talking about, Seth, were produced by his mind in the subconscious state of sleep, and they haunted him from a young age.
Maybe he
You
had
were reading
seizures.
this shit to me
Yeah,
in the car
Yeah.
the other
Yeah.
week when
but
I was
keep in
driving you
mind,
back to New Jersey,
Yeah, he had a
and
nervous
but
breakdown at a young age.
yeah,
but keep in
like
mind,
yes, Danicus.
these guys were also doing a lot of trippy drugs back then. I mean,
You're
just
talking about the
read fucking.
filmmakers, or are you talking about H.P. Lovecraft?
No, I'm talking about H.P. Lovecraft. As like,
Lovecraft
for
was
instance,
probably not touching anything based
Well,
on what I've
you
opium
read.
and
really,
morphine. Well,
Yeah, I
you
don't think he
really
was.
think so?
Drugs
I
were
don't
not
think.
popular. Like drugs were like the war on drugs had been in full
wait, no,
swing at
but
this point.
Well,
in the early
well,
20th, they had opium and morphine available as
yeah.
like
Now,
medicine and stuff. As like medicine, though.
He's like
yeah,
terrified of
but look at.
strange foods. I don't think this guy did drugs.
Well,
I
I mean, listen, all things are quite possible. If you pick up a damn a Sir Arthur Conan Doyle book on Sherlock Holmes, right, was doing freaking cocaine
right,
to
and
numb
heroin. I
himself,
get it,
and yeah,
but
so
Conan Doyle is a very different kind of guy than H.P. Lovecraft. If you read about H.P. Lovecraft, the guy is like the guy like is eating like porridge. Like he's perpetually sick. He doesn't ever leave anywhere except to go to New York because his wife drags him there. And then he goes right back to his hometown. Like Conan Doyle was all over the world touring. H.P. Lovecraft is a really sad
He
state of
had
affairs.
he had psychosis and died in a mental hospital after a nervous breakdown. That happened.
Hey guys, we're at about the 10-15 minute warning time, so we're going to probably want to start to, conclude what we're talking about here, and give me the opportunity to tell you the next piece of shit that I'm going to make you guys watch.
Okay.
And then it's
But,
my
I'm
turn.
going to conclude
Yeah,
with
I think I want to go into closing arguments for this film over the next 7 minutes.
This is
Okay,
a fun.
Judy?
This is a fun film, and
Beth and Judy.
the late Dean Stockwell was a really underrated actor. And if you want to see a horror movie that isn't going to scare you and has some trippy effects and has various members of the Corman stock company, and and rips off a lot of the great films of the late '60s. Then I recommend the Dunwich Horror. And if you like it a lot, you could then read the short story, the novella, the Dunwich Horror, which I think is the best of his actual short stories. And anything else we could say about H.P. Lovecraft, we'd be kicked off here for, because you can read more about him on Wikipedia. That's my closing argument. And I don't know why it got such a low rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
I do.
Um,
I enjoyed probably about the first half hour, and then that was pretty much it for me. It just got kind of jarring and a little bit predictable and kind of boring, and I was falling asleep. And I was like getting mad at it. And then particularly at the end when like now they're going like back and forth with like the doctor, and then the car gets like thrown off the road and people are like getting eaten in the woods. While that seems sort of like interesting, it didn't really work for me. That's it.
Abram?
Fair enough, Judy. I'm actually. Listen. I think this is Judy. This might be your most negative
Yes.
review so far.
wow.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of impressed and fascinated by that. Yeah, like I think, like if I had to be the marketing guy, I'd be like, okay, this film is like probably one of the best pieces of crap you could go out and see, because there's a lot of little parts of, there's so many things about it that are good and interesting. You could watch this movie and probably get like 30 ideas for 30 different movies that could be really great movies just based on this movie. From all the aspects of it, the photography, the color, the special effects, even But I mean, I think it's a worthwhile movie. I haven't read that much. I haven't really read H.P. Lovecraft. I get sort of a strong sense of what his style was and how he influenced the genre of horror and all these things. But like, at the end of the day, if you like weird movies that are well acted, with performances that are really like kind of like, you take a really strange movie and you give a masterful actor or actress the opportunity to stretch the whole genre of acting. I mean, you give this guy has an opportunity to basically take acting into the realm of the surreal. So, like, if you're an actor, I think this is a very, there's a lot of value to a movie like this. But I agree with Judy that it's still kind of a ridiculous movie, and it gets less and less interesting as it goes along, I'd say. I agree with that. And the plot's a little bit confusing. I don't know.
Yeah.
I definitely think there's a lot of value in it, though, from just from a general film standpoint. So that's all I got.
Okay, the Dunwich Horror from 1970, starring Dean Stockwell and Sandra Dee. is a decent film for the cinephile who wants to appreciate all the different types of things cinema has to offer. It is, it's a good, if, as Danicus said, it's worth your time if you don't spend any money on it. I'd go as high as like $4 to get this on like a DVD, and I could go in it and just
Funny
put it on.
how it's exactly $4 to rent on Amazon.
Is it? I know I paid
Yeah.
like $3.99, and it was, I guess I'd rather have the DVD, because then I could go to scenes and stuff. I did think Dean Stockwell was amazing in this. There was a lot of ADR, but that was fine. I didn't get out of it. Also, I had the subtitles on near the end, and Dr. Armitage said the language I'm going to try to pronounce it here. It's called Lehion, which is
Rahil, yeah. Rahil.
which is a made up language that Lovecraft made up along with a bunch of other things. I just thought that was cool that they did enough research and they had this stuff. Lovecraft also came up with something called Ibn Ghazi powder and the Deno Hana formula. And I just thought it was cool. I'll close with this, that the Necronomicon originally came from an Islamic tradition. He even, in the short story, said Saracentic world, which I looked
I
that up.
thought we already addressed this, and he made that whole thing up.
Yes,
Actually,
he made
you
it
know
up.
something
No, listen to me.
interesting?
No,
Yeah.
I know it's made up. I just think it's nuts or very interesting that Lovecraft made it up coming from an Islamic background.
I see what you mean.
I just thought it was.
Wait, hold on. I have to disagree with you. And the
I
reason
kind of like
why,
that.
huh?
I just kind of like that because it's not like Islam isn't that ancient.
Well, here, check this out. There is a show that I follow on YouTube called the Mysterious Middle Earth, and it's about everything that you could imagine on Islam, in terms of their folklore, their mythos, and things like that. And Lovecraft tends to pop up a number of times when they start talking about their traditions and their folklores, their mythologies, their demons, their creatures, and things like that. And he tends to pop up. And before you make that verdict, I think you should watch that show on YouTube, The Mysterious Middle Earth.
I'm not.
And
Yeah.
yeah, get back to it before you judge it like that. Before you put the gavel on the head. Definitely look into that and then make an assessment after that. Because he does pop up on a number of their episodes, especially when they do speak about demons and Cthulhu and where he got the idea from. So, yeah.
You
All
got
right.
it.
Okay, what's next?
Cool. All right, so you guys want to know what I have in store for you because this is going to be unprecedented. What I'm about to push you guys through, unprecedented for this podcast. So What happened to Sean? There he is. Okay, Sean's back. Okay, so I'm going to read off of the Rotten Tomatoes page for this film to give you an
Let me
idea.
see if I can guess it. I'm going to see if I could guess
You're
it.
never going to guess this film. You've never even heard of it. I promise you.
Okay.
I promise you've never heard of it. But go ahead, guess. Guess. Sean, I'm all ears.
No, you could read the summary and I'll guess it from the summary.
Oh,
I
okay.
was going to
Okay.
guess from the summary.
Okay, I get it. Okay. I thought you were just going to read my mind.
No,
Okay.
Weekend at Bernie.
Okay. Sex, drugs, and a dysfunctional family create the perfect storm for, well, the title's going to be given away in the description. Sex, drugs, and a dysfunctional family create the perfect storm for this guy's bar mitzvah, We are catapulted back in time to the year 1998 as we follow a colorful array of characters from the perspective of a hired videographer. The main character tries to enjoy the evening while juggling his crazy mother, his teenage angst, and his new girlfriend, handjob Hannah. Meanwhile, Gerald, the MC of the party, is on a mission to stop the notorious party pooper, Val Joe, who is attempting to ruin the party. All that plus scandalous affairs, love triangles, spin the bottle, and a man with ranch dressing for hands. But as per tradition, all must be resolved before the big song at the end of the night.
Can't hardly wait.
Wait, okay. The description isn't so good. You need to hear a review. Also, first of all, you should know that this, obviously, guys, this is comic. I'm doing a little comic relief for the show. We need it. and this is comic relief. So just keep in mind it has a 43% rating from critics and an 83% audience rating. And it's a super low budget film. The people who produced this film, and I can't even think of who they are offhand, but I discovered this film because you guys know Kosha Dills. At least Sean and Seth met Kosha Dills. They paid Kosha Dills to do a freestyle or like to construct a rap about the movie as a review for the movie. And I was like, okay, let me see this movie. All right. Do you guys want to hear a critic?
Yeah, let's hear a critic.
Do you guys want to hear a positive critic or a negative critic?
Let's hear a positive critic.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Here we go. Bill Arsenault. A series of fortunate boner-isms, Donnie's bar mitzvah, and bad trip. Dear moviegoers, as I type this out with an annoying sinus toothache and an odd explosion sound that just hit in the background, really, I'm thinking about the various self-sabotages in my life and the day-to-day struggle with anxiety. It's been since roughly the 3rd grade that I've experienced such heavy stress and nervousness, enough to hold me back from enjoying life. Sometimes it keeps me from watching movies, sometimes it keeps me from chatting with friends. Social media has become a crutch to this, where I now trade in thoughtful comments for the like button out of fear of confrontations, good and bad. Yesterday, a work colleague gave me a nice pep talk. He said the right things and gave me the right directives to follow. Man, they're really reaching, trying to find, who knows, I don't even know who this critic is. Okay, somehow a block has been lifted. I recorded a video project with ease and got over some worry over my on-camera visage. I'm now watching movies more per day than I had been previously.
Wait, is he talking about himself?
Yes, he's going on and on. Apology. Okay, sorry. I think I probably should have skipped that part. The format here, when you click on the link from when you click on the link from Rotten Tomatoes, sometimes doesn't take you directly to the. Okay, all right. Let's start clean again. Honestly, I never thought that I'd see anything that would rival the toilet humor classics of the 90s era Farrelly brothers, but here we are, and I just have. Now, I don't mean a movie that's gross for the sake of being gross, like the ShamWow Guys flick, the underground comedy movie, or a cheap cash grab knockoff like a Happy Madison quote-unquote film, but rather something with a genuine passion for the effort it takes to go all out, to go puke or go home, to raunch and then some. We've come a long way since Porky's. Donnie's Bar Mitzvah and Bad Trip are as subversively hilarious as movies can get, and in the most visceral of ways. Blunt force confrontational comedy, these are, and there is no going back. In Donnie's Bar Mitzvah, we have VHS type format where an old tape is picked out of a collection of home videos and watched with frustration by unseen viewers. It's a semi-professional videography and editing gig of a young man's bar mitzvah that captures everything for posterity. Everything. The style is never consistent as we go from found footage-ish perspective to family event sentiment to narrative storytelling all too quickly and often within the same scene. This can be confusing, but it doesn't totally matter all that much. Its bursts of fun come not from the production's craft so much as it does from the antics as a whole. Adults party hard here, right out of the gate. One guest vomits when surprised and excited. Another is a sex fiend, and one more is an agent in disguise seeking out a literal party pooper. This is the definition of juvenile jokery and way overly wacky situations of the dangerous kind. Going from butt plug, beer chugging, to cell phones and orifices to kids wearing dildos unknowingly. Sometimes the sheer gall of the vulgarity can be too much to handle, but so can the ever-frequent belly laughter that makes one hurt and hurt hard. There is some nuance in the movie, mostly around Donnie and the stoner valet, but that's it. This is pure traumatic boner raunch for best and better. I'd even venture to go traumatic, as some gags reach Lloyd Kaufman and Toxic Avenger levels of nuts. This will put off many audiences, even those inclined to watch a genre like this. But for those who've come to appreciate late-night hijinks programming, they'll find much comfort and chill. Flat out awesome, flat out terrifying, Okay, I'm going to stop here and also give a shout out to this guy because he's actually quite a good reviewer, Bill Arsenault. Thank you for that. That was great. You guys don't need to hear the end of the review. We can do that later. But that's my pitch.
Yeah, I'm watching the trailer right now. It's 2021. This came out.
Yeah, it just came out. This I believe. I watched this 3 times already, and then I bought it. I think this is a contemporary classic, cult classic.
Wow.
So that's what I got for you guys for the next one. Donnie's Bar Mitzvah. It's not based on any short stories or novels or anything, but it is if you're like stupid and immature and like you have that dumb sense of humor, this might tickle your fancy.
Okay. Where can we see it?
Amazon Prime, the usual.
Okay. The usual.
You can rent it for like a couple bucks, and I might reach out to Kosha Dills, maybe see if he wants to come on and talk about it.
Yeah, let's get Kosha Dills on this show. That would be awesome.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
That's what I got for you guys.
All right, maybe another demonology incident will happen during the bar mitzvah movie.
Again, the reality is that there's not a single movie that we pick that's weird for Obscuria Filmcast that doesn't have some element of horror in it. I'm just starting to realize horror is part of being weird. It sort of necessitates some kind of level of horror.
That Vegas movie was just horrible. It wasn't a horror movie. It was just horrible.
That's gonna be a recurring theme of this show is Seth making fun of Sean for picking that movie.
What movie?
What movie do you think?
The movie that made Cameron Diaz, Academy Award nominee, quit acting permanently.
Yo, man, no, actually, Sex Tape was the one where she quit, and that's a good movie too. Yes, it is. I saw it in theaters. The Other Woman is nearly a masterpiece.